Hi guys, so this is day 52 of the daily RC practice series. Quite an interesting read. In the first paragraph, author talks about multiple shades of feminism. On the one uh, end of the spectrum lies radical feminism, which goes as far as rejecting genders altogether, the existence of genders. On the other end of the spectrum is liberal feminism, which focuses on individual rights, demands political and legal equality for women, but within the existing frameworks of society. In the second paragraph, author talks about Western societies in particular and introduces the two modes of discussion of argumentation. First, relational feminism, which acknowledges the biological differences between the two genders and demands for equity rather than equality. Second, individualist feminism, which rejects gender roles and demands personal freedom. In the third paragraph, author talks about the shift from relational feminism in England and US to individualist feminism, and he talks about the differences in their goals. Both these streams of feminism were pretty different from each other, and they became more different post 1920. Their goals became widely divergent, and their assertions also were divergent. In the last paragraph, author highlights flaws in both. Says relational feminism is often misused by the adversaries to perpetuate patriarchy. The gender differences that they base their arguments on are often appropriated, misused by adversaries to justify patriarchy. And on the other hand, individualist feminism is an oversimplification which completely denies the existence of biological differences. So that is an oversimplification. Author proposes that the two streams, the two ideologies, be combined for a more fruitful model of feminism. Okay, let's look at the questions now. Number one, the author of the passage alludes to, refers to the well-established nature of the concept of individual rights in the Anglo-Saxon legal and political tradition in order to do what? So he refers to a well-established tradition here because the concept of individual rights was already well established. Individualist feminism came to predominate English speaking countries. So this is citing this fact in order to give us the reason behind predominance of individualist feminism post 1920. Option A, to illustrate the influence of individualist feminist thought on more general intellectual trends in English history. That's not what he wants to do here. Argue that feminism was already a part of the larger Anglo-Saxon intellectual tradition. Not at all. Explain the decline in individualist thinking among feminists in non-English speaking countries. No. To help account for an increasing shift towards individualist feminists. That's exactly what the paragraph talks about. So this is a shift from relational feminism to individualist feminism, and the reason for that was because the concept of individual rights were already well established. That is why people switched to individualist feminism there. Option D is the correct answer. Passage suggests that the author of the passage believes which of the following. Option A, the predominance of individualist feminism in English speaking countries is a historical phenomena, the causes of which have yet to be investigated. It is opposite to what the author says. The causes have been investigated. In fact, author tells us the causes. The previous question was about this cause. Option B, the individualist and relational feminist views are irreconcilable. Again, opposite. If they cannot be reconciled, how does the author propose that these could be harmonized for a more fruitful model to emerge? This is opposite. Option C, a consensus concerning the direction of future feminist politics will probably soon emerge. not a consensus. Author does not predict that a consensus will emerge. He only proposes that. It was a proposition that the two could be combined, they could be harmonized for a more fruitful model to emerge. Author is not predicting, author does not know whether that would happen or not. So it's a proposition rather than a prediction. It's a suggestion rather than a prediction. Option D, political adversaries of feminism often misuse arguments predicated on differences between the sexes to argue that the existing social system should be maintained. As discussed in passage analysis itself, this is true. So author does believe, when he highlights a flaw here, that these arguments are often appropriated by political adversaries and they are used to endorse male privilege. So option D is the correct answer. Can be inferred from the passage that the individualist feminist tradition denies the validity of which of the following causal statements. Okay. Now what they deny here they downplay the importance of gender roles. So what they deny is the gender segregation of labor, the importance of gender roles. Option A says a division of labor in a social group can result in increased efficiency. Now there's no talk of efficiency, so this becomes alien. A division of labor in a social group causes inequities in the distribution of opportunities and benefits. Well, such a claim also is alien to the passage. A division of labor on the basis of gender in a social group is necessitated by the existence of sex-linked biological differences between male and female members. That is exactly what they deny. They downplay, they reject the importance of gender roles, which means they deny the validity of this statement that a division of labor is necessary or it is necessitated by the gender differences. They do not accept the role of gender differences. Option D, culturally determined distinctions based on gender in a social group foster the existence of differing attitudes and opinions. Again, something not attributed to individualist feminists in the passage. Option C. According to the author, which of the following was true of a feminist thought in Western societies before 1890? Okay. So he says between 1890 and 1920, there was a shift. There was a shift from relational feminism to individualist feminism, which means before 1890, our question is before 1890, this thought was more prevalent, this was widespread, this was predominating thought. Okay. Option A says individualist feminist arguments were not found. Well, both of them existed, because author says RF was the dominant strain. It was not the only strain. So IF also must have existed, but the dominant strain was RF. Okay. So this is factually incorrect. IF was a strain in feminist thought, yes, but another strain, RF, predominated. Exactly what we are reading here. RF was the dominant strain. Option B is the correct answer. R and I approaches were equally prevalent. No, wrong. It is contradicting. The predominant view among feminists held that the welfare of women was ultimately less important than the welfare of children. This is absolutely out of context. So option B is the correct. The author implies that which of the following was true of most feminist thinkers in England and United States after 1920. Well, after 1920, they preferred individualist feminism. So option A says they were less concerned with politics than the intellectual issues. Alien. They began to reach a broader audience and their programs began to be adopted by mainstream political parties. Again, alien. They called repeatedly for international cooperation among women's groups to achieve their goals. They did, again, nothing like this is mentioned. They did not attempt to unite the two different feminist approaches in their thought. Now this is written here. The goals of the two approaches began to seem increasingly irreconcilable, which means they could not be united. No compromise between the two goals could be effected. they became, there was a disharmony between them. They could not be united. So correct answer, option D. Last question. To which of the following would radical feminists mentioned in the first paragraph would lend the most support? Okay. So these radical feminists believe sexism is so deeply rooted that the only cure is to eliminate the concept of gender completely. Now, okay. So option A law mandating that all companies give 2 months of maternity leaves. It does not correspond to this idea. A law ensuring women against financial stress. Again, reservation of 30% seats in all political parties for women. Not really. Changing the vocabularies of all languages to neuter. Ah, ha, ha. So if you change the vocabularies of all language to neuter, that is, there's no gender specific words, and that would therefore that would be a step in this direction. You're eliminating the concept of gender completely. That would be a step in this direction. No gender specific words. They would wholeheartedly support such a step. Beautiful question. Hope you got most of them correct. Keep improving. Cheers to learning.